Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I'm sorry about the little technical difficulties here. So my name is Anja Padget, and I am going to be hosting this webinar together with my dear friend from Fashion Cloud, Clara, and I'll let her introduce herself in a moment. But first of all, I would like to just set the stage for you guys for what we're going to talk about today. Then we're going to head over to Clara and I'll ask her some questions, and she'll also get to present some of the things that Fashion Cloud and herself has been working on. And of course, there's always room for questions. So if you have any questions during our session, just pop them into the Q&A, and I'll keep track of them as well to see if any questions pops up. And other than that, yeah, we'll just get started. So for anyone who has seen prior webinars from me, this is something that I like to show every time, because this is really what a lot of us are impacted by, both the tech solutions, but of course also the very many brands working in the fashion industry. This is absolutely a picture of all of the different bunch of people that got together, and they then decided to do a lot of legislations that are impacting our daily lives a lot. Now, a while back in 2022, they came up with this strategy for textiles, a circular strategy for textiles. And that really was the starting point in terms of the very many legislations that are here and are coming. So that is what we're prepared for, or preparing for. That means that this is sort of the picture that a lot of brands out there are really facing at the moment, unfortunately, because there are so many different abbreviations, so many different words that everybody's trying to keep track of, trying to figure out what do they actually mean. Am I directly impacted by them, or is it something that isn't directly impacted but still has an impact on my daily life? A lot of different words meant and new ways of working had to be implemented due to all of these legislations and abbreviations that we were met with. Now, then what we talk a lot about, especially when you are a smaller company, meant that because of all of the legislations came, a lot of reporting suddenly had to be done. That has then meant that a lot of smaller companies that have to deliver a lot of data due to all of these reporting legislations, and having to deliver so many data really requires a new way of working in the textile industry. Now, maybe some of you have seen all of these different Excel sheets being sent out, and they are different, unfortunately. They are very much different from company to company, depending on what they're focused on in their reporting. And that really means that as a brand that has to deliver all of these different data points, that really can become very complex, very difficult to keep up with, and how to ensure that you have a collective place for all of this data to be able to share it, to continue the business that you have with these larger key account customers. That has then meant that for many companies, you would have to start data mapping, something that is very new to the textile industry in a sense. Doesn't mean that you don't necessarily have the data and haven't worked with it for many years. It just meant that suddenly you have to know where is the data, how does that data transfer to different places, where does that data lie in which technical system, etc. It really meant that beforehand, you might have had all of the data ready, all of the information from the supplier, because it was a necessity for production. But where did it then have to lie to be able to actually ensure that that data could be delivered elsewhere, collectively somewhere? So a data mapping has really been something that a lot of our customers as well have really been working on and still trying to work on. Where do we input data? How is that data shared between two systems, and so on? So it means, in a sense, that when you look at how you're working with IT today compared to earlier, it means that you have to have a total look of your ecosystem, your technical ecosystem, where data gets transferred from one place to another, gets created one place and then transferred to another place, and then that data is used for something else. An example there is, of course, that you have some data in your PLM system, you transfer that to an ERP system, and that then can become to production orders, logistical, insurance, and so on. It also means that if you have PLM data, that then needs to go into somewhere where they can calculate the environmental impact, or that then needs to go to somewhere where the supply chain can be mapped. So it's very much about ensuring that the data that you have, where does it all live? Where does it have to go to further work with that data to become something else? And that's really where you talk about, where can I have all of my data stored? Where can I ensure that I know where all of my data is? So it's very much about data management in a sense. And a lot of the people that I talk to in the industry, whether it's buyers or designers, supply chain managers, etc., they all sort of feel like they've become data managers, information managers, more so on top of the work that they're already doing. And that's really the change that has been happening, and the necessity to be able to deliver the data to whomever needs the data, but of course also to be compliant with the upcoming legislations coming our way. And with that, with those words, I would like to introduce today my guest from Fashion Cloud, Clara. Now, unfortunately, I'm not sure that her camera is on.
Yeah, hello everyone. Well, I'm very sorry. For some reason, I am not able to switch on my camera. I swear I even put on a nice blazer. And Anja, sorry, I am sure you had hoped for to see me, but let's roll with it. I guess I can give you a nice podcast experience here.
Oh yeah.
You have the slides anyway, so you see how I would look like here in the picture. Um, I am very happy to be part of this conversation here today. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah. A quick introduction. My name is Clara. I work at Fashion Cloud for soon 7 years. Before that, I worked in the fashion industry already, both on the brand side and on the retailer side. And I quite quickly became more interested in the systemic topics and systemic problems specifically of the industry rather than the glamorous exterior maybe of it. So this is also how I dived into the more technical part of the industry, which was new to me in the beginning and a bit scary too. All the data management that Anja already mentioned can feel a bit scary in the first moment. So I do know this experience too. But now I'm in there, and it's a quite special place, unique place to be, where fashion, data, and then also sustainability meets. So at Fashion Cloud, I was lucky enough to build our sustainability team. And I'm also leading our content hub team. But before I can share a bit more what I'm doing there, one sentence about Fashion Cloud. We are Europe's biggest B2B platform. We work with the wholesale community to make it vibrant and work together seamlessly. On our platform, we want for wholesale to unlock its full potential, making it easy, data-driven, and transparent. And we do that through fostering community, through data, and through software. So we do essentially connect brands with retailers and retailers with brands, both in fashion, sports, shoes, accessories, all of that. And with my teams, I do focus mainly on the topics of data quality, specifically product data quality. And in the recent 4 last years, sustainability data, specifically ESG data, has become a major part of this. And I'm sure we will talk a bit more about this in the upcoming conversation.
Good. Thank you so much, Clara. So I'm going to show the next slides. You just let me know when you want me to switch. I'll give you the word to go through the next slides about the work that you've been doing with some of the key accounts that I also mentioned.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's keep that in the background for a bit. So I mentioned that we do foster a thriving wholesale community through community. And what we do here is, well, we bring together retailers, we bring together brands, and we bring both sides also on one table. Well, what you see here is a roundtable that we, for the first time, hosted 2022. Where we brought together on one table in one of our offices in Amsterdam several retailers from all across Europe to talk about the topic of transparency and sustainability data. Because if you would ask what are the biggest data challenges today for brands and retailers, I would have 3 answers. Back then it was 2 mainly: data availability and data quality. Specifically with sustainability data becoming more relevant or having become more relevant in the recent years, the big e-com retailers that are, you know, at the core very data driven and just huge and in a pretty central place in our industry in Europe these years, they have started to request sustainability data as a new kind of product data from brands. For brands, this has been new. For the longest time, sustainability efforts have been voluntary. You know, the brands were active there, more, some less. They set up great initiatives, great projects around sustainability, but they were not used for anyone to, you know, request specific information, because so far it was usually the brands deciding what they do and, you know, like build their brand around it, build their self-understanding around it. And now it turned to actually the retailers requesting specific sustainability related information that fit for some brands and not for other brands. And that meant for the retailers that it was very, very difficult for them to actually get that sustainability data. And we saw that problem, from 2020 on, let's say already, started talking to retailers. What are you requesting? What do you need? What are the problems? At the same time, brands reached out telling us that it becomes more difficult with all these requests. So we took the effort to bring these retailers together to inform them about the issues that are arising on the brand sides, and also facilitate communication among these retailers about what the actual issues they are having are currently, and how they make it difficult for brands. And you can already imagine that even bringing the retailers together, I'm talking Zalando, Boost, Galeries Lafayette, About You, who else was there? Wekamp was there, Magasin du Nord, bringing them to one table in the fashion industry that is quite competitive was a big thing already.
Do you want me to change the slide?
No, if let's stay here for a second. So I was telling you that we were talking about the issues that were arising. Well, what were the issues? Still, the situation is that retailers do request sustainability data from brands, mainly through Excel sheets. Very innovative, I know. That's the innovative, glamorous industry that we work in. And back then, that also already was the case. And that meant brands experiencing getting different Excel sheets big Excel sheets from different retailers and getting asked to fill in these Excel sheets on a product level, sometimes even on the GTIN level, meaning color and size way, like asking what sustainability information do you have per article? In an industry where there's not even only 2 seasons anymore, of course, but 4, 12, or even more, that's too much to ask, to be honest. This is not feasible for brands to fill in, especially if one Excel sheet looks different to the other. So this was the first problem. There was a lack of standard of what was requested, and also a lack of in which way specifically. Sometimes even just small naming differences made it even more difficult for the brands to fill in these sheets.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, there was also lack of standard of what even is sustainability data, right? And now I'm getting to all these abbreviations, Anja, that you showed in the beginning. Like it becomes more and more clear what fields of sustainability are becoming relevant, at least from the regulatory side, even though many of them are still under construction, so to say. So still not done, some of the regulations. But yeah, it's still, there is no industry standard of what defines sustainability product data. So of course that also made it very difficult for both the retailers what to request and for the brands to what actually, what data to have. And the data that the brands have, because I told you many brands were active in the sustainability in the ESG field. They did have their initiatives. They did use the innovative fibers. They did use the certifications and so on. So they had that, but they did not understand it as a normal product data aspect, as a normal product attribute.
Yeah.
So this was one of the first things that we understand. We had to establish. The retailers were maybe quicker to establish that sustainability data is a normal part of product data. And looking ahead in the future, this, remains true, and will only the product data package of the future will change, will probably become a bit bigger than what we've known in the past decades. So yeah, sustainability data is a normal part of product data. That is the first thing that we took from this retailer group and brought it back to the brands to tell them, you need to take care of sustainability data as part of product data. And it is not enough to have only PDFs, because no one can read PDFs, or no system can read PDFs. So you need to have to understand this needs to be in your systems.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So this also brings me to the next problem, which is, having the sustainability data in the systems. So after we took the conversation from the retailers back to the brands, told the brands, look, the retailers essentially want the same from you, and I will get to that in a second, what the retailers actually want from brands. We also asked the brands back, what are your problems? And the main problem was, well, the sustainability data is not in the same system as the rest of the product data. And this is where the title of this conversation here comes back in, right? The silos. Sustainability data has not been thought as part of product data. Therefore, it was not part of any PLM system, of any PIM system, ERP system. It was simply not included, but it laid in as PDF in a file with a sustainability team, or in some Excel sheet with a sustainability team. So this was a huge problem that we were facing. To make it easier for brands to understand sustainability data as part of product data, we needed to create transparency of what sustainability data currently is. And if there is no standard in the industry, you have to start somewhere. So we gathered all the requirements from all the retailers, put them on top of each other, and analyzed the smallest denominator from all of that. And if you go to the next slide, please. Yes.
Yes.
The first finding that we had is that, yes, under the umbrella of sustainability data, you can put a lot, right? But the status quo of what retailers request are two types of sustainability data. It's certification data, what you see on the left side. This is examples of certificates. And then on the right side, you see licensed and trademarked materials. So we did find out that these two types of sustainability data are currently in wholesale the relevant ones to have. Yes, it's great if you have, like solar panels on the roof. Yes, it's great if you have social projects going on. That's all great, and I'm the last person who says it's not relevant to do that. The more impact, the better. But you have to start somewhere, and starting with reality and what's really requested seems a good focus to have in the beginning. So but even within these two types, it's quite difficult to say, yeah, well, but what certificate and what material should a brand use? Specifically, if you are maybe a smaller brand, working with certificates is a big step. It's expensive and complex. So choosing the right one is a very, very important step, and yeah, a difficult one also, because where to focus. So we did put all the requirements on top of each other and found out that among the many certificates and materials that exist, there are some that are just accepted by many retailers for different reason. Every retailer has their own strategy around sustainability, around how they portray this to the customers. But yeah, it seems like some certificates are, all retailers agree that they accept it, or almost all agree. That's the two lilac columns on the left-hand side, and the same goes for materials. So we shared this also as kind of like a guidance for the brands to make that first decision of what to use, what material, what certificate, so that you can in the end share relevant information with the retailers in the way they requested.
Clara, can I ask just
Yes.
quickly, just in terms of what you mean in terms of how they accept it? What does that mean in a sense that they accept it? Is that for them to show on their website, or is that because it aligns with what they want to report on?
That is a very, very good question, because in the industry that has no legal guidance on that yet, right?
Yeah.
That's a very, very good question. The use cases on the retailer side are multifaceted. One, for sure, is communication towards the customer. So the easiest way, usually how most people know it, is if you go on a web shop and you filter for more sustainable aspects. The question is, what do you filter for? And the retailers do use certificates and materials to put articles in the more sustainable bucket. They would not call it more sustainable these days anymore, but yeah, there still needs to be data behind that to identify whether a product has impactful characteristics to it or not.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And you could, I mean, again, the umbrella of sustainable impact is so huge that you could put everything underneath it. But retailers have to focus somewhere, and we found out they focus, like I said, on certificates and materials. And for that, they need to draw the line somewhere. And if I say they accept it, to put it in easy words, they have a list of certificates that they use for claims for communication, or materials they use for claims, and other characteristics of a garment that they do not use for claims. So that is what I mean by accept. And the other use case that you also mentioned is reporting or their own reaching their own goals. And there they also have certain things they have goals on, like they want to increase their use of or their share of articles sold with more innovative materials, materials with less bad impact, or for example, they want to increase their share of articles sold that have social or environmental they adhere to social or environmental standards, so they are certified. So this is what I mean by accepted.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, if you go to the next slide, please. Another thing that we found out with retailers is another thing changed in the industry. In the early days of sustainability management, it was enough if a brand said this white t-shirt is certified, and the data said yes or said no. So it was a binary yes no data point, and that was enough in the early days. That is by far not enough anymore today. But in order to share that your product has a certification, there need to be more data points than just a yes, no. There need to be the name of the certificate. There needs to be how much of the product is certified. So yeah, what material in question, how much percentage that is of the whole product, and that weight-based. There needs to be a certification number. There needs to be who gives out that certification, and even the level of certification. So is the full product certified, or maybe just the material fabrication level, so the step of the supply chain. And this is where it becomes complex. And this is also where it becomes difficult for brands to have all these data points in their systems. So coming back to the data management, Anja, that you shared in the beginning, we start to understand the complexity here. And the retailers did not make it more easy for brands. This is what we found out together with them. And yeah, it was also, I guess, admitting that they not make it easy for brands, because if you look here, we put together what data points do the retailers request, and you see that more or less it's the same. Everyone needs the name of the certificate. Everyone needs the percentage. Almost everyone asks for the certifying institute, so who gives out the certificate. Everyone asks for the number. But the names of the data points that the retailers request differ from each other. Why is that the case? That just makes it difficult for brands, right? So by putting this transparently next to each other, we took the next, or we were able to take the next step to understand the retailers also need to show more collaboration to make it easier for brands to understand what data points they need to manage, to then have them in the right systems and in systems that can, share this data with outside the scope of your own company.
Cool. And where you mentioned as well as and I did as well in terms of this whole ecosystem, all of the different data, of course, including product data. Where do you see as Fashion Cloud, because you as a content hub for all of the data to be collected and then thereby sharing it with Zalando or Boost and so on, where do you see all of the data coming from the brands? Is it very many different platforms, or how do you see them delivering it?
That's a very good question. It's not the same across brands. So the technical setup from one brand to the other might differ a lot. So where these data points that you see here, where they are, can be, they are hopefully in your PLM system. Maybe they are already in the PIM system. Maybe they are in an ERP system. But we also have realities where they are not in any of these systems, but they are, stored away in different PDFs per product, and you have the certification number of one certificate in one PDF and for the next certificate in the other PDF, and they are not linked to the specific products at all.
No.
So these are the differences as I think that you see here. And then, I mean, you can go even one step further and ask for where do these data points originate, right? Where do they become data points? Because the brand is not creating the certification number, right? The certifying institute is.
Yeah.
And then depending on where in the supply chain the certificate lies, also the brand might not have the certificate themselves, but maybe only the fabric supplier. So this is where the data is. So this is where the brand needs to start looking into the supply chain.
Yes.
Because this is where many of the sustainability related data points originate.
Okay, cool. I think it is. I think that's one of the things that we hear as well from many of our customers is that where should all of this data lie and where should it, because as you mentioned, a lot of it comes from the suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the easiest way for them as well to be a part of this journey? Because the data really lies in very many places in the value chain, including the supply chain. And that makes it even more complex for the good brands out there trying to collect so many data points.
Absolutely. This is also something that we mainly talking to brands, what we found out. And I would say, I mean, transparency is clearly a topic that um, is visible in most of the regulations that are coming up, that are already in place. If you remember the nice mind map that you showed in the beginning, Anja, with all the abbreviations, most of these regulations include transparency, and many of them also traceability to a certain point. So knowing your supply chain, and it becomes clear that you need to know your supply chain and look into your supply chain to get the data from there. We found that too, and we do also know that many brands do understand that that needs to be a focus topic, but it's very difficult to get started with this because it's a very complex and very wide topic. So another collaboration initiative that we did, other than bringing the retailers together, facilitating more transparency and unification with the retailers, we also looked at, who looks into the supply chains and who can help brands to get the data that the retailers need from the supply chains. So we found out that it's actually a field that is quite filled up with companies these days that do help brands to get clarity into their supply chains. But it's very difficult for brands to choose the right partner because there are so many and they are different from each other, but also similar in a way. And then you also have traceability, and then you have impact calculation, but how does that even differ from each other? So just a very wide field to navigate through.
Exactly.
So what we did, and maybe you can switch to the next slide here. Yeah, thanks. What we did is we partnered up for a white paper with some of these platforms that help brands to get transparency into their supply chains. You see them on the bottom. That's just a few of them that exist. There are others too that are not here in this list. But yeah, we started somewhere and we brought them together and gathered all the information of in which way are they similar, in which way do they differ from each other, and made it, just explained in very easy steps what the differences are, what the similarities are, and what each of these platforms can, help brands with, so that brands can get familiar with this, choose the right partner to, get started, to get the right data, to have the data to manage in the first place.
Very nice. And I think it's in a general sense, it's very, very well done to get these partners together, because I think that's one of the things that we all talk a lot about, is that if the tech solutions cannot collaborate with each other, this is going to be a very difficult place to be in, because it's all of the data that we're talking about has to be in some sort of digital solution to be able to share that and get it further on in the value chain. So it's really well done that you've collected these ones together with so many others, because it is a collaborative space, I think, right?
Absolutely. I think you can look at, I think part of this webinar explanation was, or it also mentioned connected data, and you could ask like, what is connected data? And I would say, I mean, I don't have it's not an industry standard definition, but I would say it's data that serves a greater cause than just within the scope of your own company.
Yeah.
And I think you can look at it on different levels. So in the same way that the systems within, for example, a brand need to be able to interoperate. So you need to have the sustainability data that you might have in one system, also be able to put that into the PLM and PIM and ERP system, or however your landscape look like. So the systems within your own scope need to be interoperable, but also systems across different players across along the value chain need to be interoperable, because the retailers need the same data that the brand has and needs, but also the brand needs that data from their suppliers. So you already see it's not enough to have data, you need to be able to share it to make value out of that data.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I think that's also many of the ones that I speak to talk a lot about it just being a very, a compliance exercise, which becomes a great hassle, because why are we doing it? Why do we have to do it? And I think in a sense, when we start talking about sharing that data and using that data for something more, I had a conversation recently about, for example, the DPP, that, why not use that as a business opportunity instead of thinking of it as just a compliance exercise? And I think if you switch that around, that really becomes a better conversation in terms of all of the work that has to be done, both in the company and the brand, but also with the suppliers, that it doesn't necessarily only have to be a compliance exercise. It's also to do with the business side of it, having to be able to sell your goods to Zalando or Boost or any other key accounts where the data has to be, making that a simple task as well. Yeah, it's also a business opportunity and to be able to exist as a business, right?
Absolutely. I think aligning commercial and compliance goals
Yeah.
is a huge challenge. It's funny to me personally. It's a bit funny. Back when I studied, everyone talked about what is the business case of sustainability, and hey, we are still there, I guess. But luckily, much more specific than back then. But yeah, I think looking at compliance just for compliance reasons, that's a risk. That's
Mhm.
also it's also a fair criticism that people are raising towards some of the regulations that are just, very, require a lot of effort, time, and bureaucracy to go in there. And you shouldn't do that just for compliance, right? But you can also look at it that by creating transparency, I think if you look at supply chain, it becomes specifically clear. It's you gather knowledge, you
Mhm.
gather knowledge of where you can improve things, where you can increase efficiencies, You can, risk management is a big topic that is closely connected to that. And specifically, if you look at the wholesale sector of the industry, for years already there is aspects away from ESG data that, yes, some retailers, they do have requirements for, let's say, pictures, for example, just a certain number of pictures. There need to at least be 3 or 5 different pictures, including model images. And if the brand does not deliver this, the product does not go online. Therefore, you lose sales. That's a clear example from the traditional product data world. Or also, if you do not share model height, the risk of the article being returned and in the end not sold, but actually need for disposal starts to be a topic, is also much higher than if you share model height and model, the data of like how big the model is and how wide and so on. And you can translate that into sustainability data. The retailers do have their goals around impact, and they do have an interest to sell more articles that do have sustainability aspects to them. And if the brand is not sharing these aspects, these products are pushed in a different way than if they had it. So if you look at it like that, the commercial aspect of transparency of sharing this data becomes more obvious, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, Clara, we're actually running out of time, unfortunately. It's such an interesting conversation as always having you. But I don't see any questions from the audience. I popped in the webinar chat. If you have any questions, hurry on and write them. And other than that, I'm just gonna go to this. We have our monthly webinar where Serena, my colleague, and Ulla, my 2 colleagues, will be there to answer any questions. As usual, they bring up any topic, a specific topic every time. This time it's going to be the style number generator that they will discuss and talk about. So tune in for that. But also, if you just have any questions related to either ESG related matters or Delogue related matters, this is your chance for half an hour with 2 of our experts to get your questions answered. And then I want to, for the first time ever this year, I would like to do a bit of publicity for our Great Tech Threads, the yearly event that we first hosted this year back in May. Such a great success. Luckily, Fashion Cloud was a part of it as well, and with a lot of others, tech partners joining us. And it was such a great success that we've chosen to do it next year as well. So 12th of May, 2026 will return as well with Tech Threads. This year, the topics was very much ESG related. Next year, we're going to focus much more on something that is very dear to many of the tech solutions hearts, is operational excellence. So how do you actually use the benefits of technology to ensure that your business thrives? And therein lies a bunch of things, will be ESG, but it will also be a lot about business, technology, how does those things go hand in hand, and so on. So tune in for that, and you can already now buy your tickets on our website. And stay tuned with our LinkedIn and on our website for a lot of different updates on the event. So thank you so much. Thank you, Clara. I'm sorry the video didn't work. I hope everybody liked the podcast version of this one. Next month we'll have another webinar. Go into our website and sign on for that, and the Q&A every month as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And thank you again, Clara. It was a pleasure as always having you.
Thanks for having me. See you at Tech Threads.
Yes,
Bye.
we will. Bye.